Hi, hello, and welcome to or welcome back to Lily's Library. So today's video is going to be the beginning of the year book tag. So let's just get straight on into it. So the first question on this tag is how many books are you planning on reading in 2026? Now, originally I hadn't really set myself a numerical goal for the year, but I've kind of had a slight change of heart and I'm just going to set it to 52 books. That is a book a week, which I think is really achievable and a really easy number for me personally. I know I can get to that because on average the lowest number of books I do read a year is about 50, so I think that's a pretty achievable goal for me. Now, question 2 is a book that you're likely to reread in 2026. Now, I'm a bit weird with rereading books. I don't do it very often, but there is maybe a trilogy I would like to try and reread, and I'll just grab it. But I'm hoping to try and reread the Shades of Magic books. I really love these. These are some of my favorite books. They got me back into reading. A few years ago, I reread A Darker Shade of Magic because I wanted to read the Fragile Threads of Power when it released, but I really kind of wanted a refresher on the world. I've still yet to read Fragile Threads, so I'm going to be rereading all 3 of these books. I'm uncertain on if I will be rereading A Darker Shade of Magic, but I have my paperbacks up there, which I'm going to be rereading through them and annotating them because that's not something I did on my first read, and I'd really love to do that with those books, so I feel like I will most likely be rereading this trilogy. Okay, question number 3 is a priority read on your TBR, and for me that one is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I spoke about this in my 12 books in 12 months TBR, but this is something that's been on my TBR for actual years now. I've been wanting to read it for ages. I know a lot of people who really love this book. I think it's something I could enjoy, but I do struggle with historical fiction at times, so I would really like to prioritize this and read this. I might actually try and end up getting to it next month because I really want to give it a go. I think this is something that could take me a few months to read or a few weeks to read just because it is long and I do struggle a bit with historical fiction, like I said, but this is one of my priority reads for the year. Question 4 is an author you won't be reading more books from this year, and for me that's kind of like any problematic authors. Like, there is a lot of authors out there that are shitty that I just have never read, and then there's ones that have been revealed to be shitty that I will not be reading anything more from. So obviously Neil Gaiman is a big one. I have only read like 2 of his books and I'm not planning on reading anymore. That is not a man I want to support. So I think that's like kind of the main answer. I don't really have any authors that I'm not planning on reading from. And I don't know, that's just kind of the only thing I've got at this stage. Like, I've got a list of authors I will never read, but yeah, that's kind of it for this question, I guess. Then question 5 is something new you want to read. And for this question, I'm kind of interpreting it off of like genres or tropes kind of thing. And for this, I'm kind of saying like more literary fiction. It's something I have enjoyed in the past and it's something I would really like to explore. Another thing is Irish fiction as well as African fiction as well, or books written by African authors. I think that's an area that I'm really lacking in. So I'm going to be using Amplify Bookstore a lot more to help me navigate that area and to expand my reading and really diversify it. So that's kind of like my interpretation and answer to something new. These are things that I have read bits and pieces of from before, but they're very much new to me as it's something that is very underexplored in my reading. If you couldn't tell from my bookshelves, I'm very fantasy focused. Question number 6 is a popular book you want to read. Now, I've got 2 books I'm going to talk about for this answer. The first one is The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This goes for this duology, which I think this is the Earthseed duology or something, but the sequel to this is Parable of the Talents. These are dystopian books. This has been on my TBR for ages as well, and I just know I'm going to love it. So I'm definitely going to be prioritizing this, and this is a book that I really, really want to read. That is also like insanely popular and I think very prevalent for our times. I've heard a lot of people say that this book is very realistic to what our current day and time looks like, so I'm very intrigued to see how this book goes. Then we've got a popular new release that came out last year, and that is Catabasis or Catabasis, however you want to say it, by R.F. Kuang. I don't really remember exactly what this is about. I know it's really much about how academia is basically a hellhole and how shit it is, but it's kind of like a physical manifestation of that, and it's these academics that are going through multiple layers of hell. That's kind of all I know and all I want to know. I've heard a lot of people say this was very confusing and dense to get through, but then a lot of other people who absolutely loved it and said it wasn't really that bad. So I'm really intrigued. This is a book I will definitely be getting to in 2026 at some point, and I just love R.F. Kuang, and at this stage this is the only book of hers that I have yet to read, so I will be getting to this as soon as I can. Okay, so question 7 is your most anticipated book release for the year. Now, I've got quite a few, but I'm kind of just picking like 2 or 3 to focus on and talk about because I feel like there's so many that I forget them all the time. But one of them is one that is kind of technically out already, I think, in the US and is coming out soon in Australia, and that is Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This is like her literary and contemporary fiction debut. Obviously, she had I'm Glad My Mum Died, which was a non-fiction memoir, and I'm really intrigued by this one. It sounds really interesting, and I really adored Jeanette's writing in her memoir, so I'm really intrigued to see how that translates into fiction. Okay, question number 8 is a bookish goal for 2026. Now, I've got quite a few. I've already spoken about them briefly in some other videos, so I'll just do a very brief summary of some of them, but one of them is to kind of post and share more reviews. So that's not necessarily something I'm going to be doing here, as I do kind of do my monthly wrap up at the end of the month and do all my reviews there, but I'd love to share more of them on TikTok, Storygraph, and Instagram. So you can follow me on all 3. They'll be linked down below and on my page, but I'd like to try and post a little short review on Instagram for each book I read throughout the year. I know a lot of people I follow in there do that, and I think it's a really good way to kind of look back at it and keep it all together. So kind of going with that, I have my book journal that I've been using, and I'm just writing all my thoughts immediately once I finish a book, and then I use that to formulate my review on Instagram and Storygraph. So I think that's going to be something that I really want to prioritize. Another goal I have is to buy less books. I would really like to kind of tackle my physical TBR and have that be a real big focus. So I want to utilize the library more often than I am buying books. So I think that's a pretty solid goal. There's some of my main ones. There's a few other little ones scattered around, but there's some good other bookish ones that aren't necessarily like numerical or certain genres or that kind of thing. Okay, number 9 is a book that's been on your TBR that you will probably never read. Now, I'm just gonna go off my physical TBR and go with 3 books that I'm about to unhaul. These ones have been on my TBR for a mixed amount of time, but most of them only like a handful of years, like very recently. So the first one is Board Gay Werewolf. This is by Tony Santorella, and I'd heard good reviews about it, but I just read the blurb and it really doesn't seem like anything that would interest me. It's about Brian, who's an aimless slacker in his 20s. He works double shifts at his waiter job, never cleans his apartment, and gets blackout drunk with his restaurant comrades. And it talks about this whole millennial wear entrepreneur that's determined to explore exponential growth strategies in the mythological wellness market. I just feel like this is not going to be a humor I vibe with. It is short. I might try and give it a go, but just based on the blurb, I feel like I'm really not going to have a good time with this. So this is one I'm probably not going to read, so I'm going to unhaul it. Then I've also got the poetry of Emily Dickinson. I'm just not a poetry person, especially not kind of this era and time of poetry. I don't mind some of it, but I don't know, poetry's not my thing, and especially not this collection. And then we've also got The Healing Season of Pottery. This is by Yon Somin. It does sound really cute, but I'm just not really vibing with kind of cozy fiction anymore. I've got a few books that I do want to read that are still within that cozy fantasy, cozy fiction genre, but it's just really not doing it for me anymore. And this one, I think I'm gonna unhaul it. I did try to read it, but it's really not working. Like, I still have my bookmark in there, so lucky I checked because I do want to keep this bookmark, but yeah, this is something that's been on my TBR for a while that I just don't think I'm ever gonna read, so I'm gonna unhaul these 3 books. Okay, question number 10 is a book series you want to read in 2026. So I've got quite a few of them, but I'm gonna try not to double up on answers because obviously I'm gonna be reading The Realm of the Elderlings and finishing the final 2 series I have left in that. So there are 2 other series I would like to start. One of them I would like to complete, the other one I'd like to at least start and make some progress on. But starting with the one I want to complete, this is one of the other books on my 12 books in 12 months TBR, and that is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I've never read these. I watched the movies and I absolutely adore them. They were such a big part of my childhood, but for some reason I've just never read the books, so I would love to read all 3 of them. I've obviously got this I've got this chunky bind up of all of them that is really nice and floppy, so I'm going to slowly be making my way through these throughout the year. Then the other series I'm wanting to start is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is something that's been on my TBR for ages now, and I was about to start them and then saw her announcement of them being re-edited and republished and being kind of updated, so I was kind of waiting for more of those to come out. I would really like to start this series. I've heard really good things about it, and I loved Samantha Shannon's writing in the Roots of Chaos cycle, so I would definitely love to explore more in kind of like a different universe of hers. Now, question 11 is your auto-buy authors. I've got a lot of them, like T. Kingfisher, we've got R.F. Kuang, Robin Hobb, Samantha Shannon, but there's so many of them, but like I think some main ones would definitely be, yeah, Samantha Shannon, Ava Reid, and Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen Graham Jones, I really love his work and his horror, and I would love to read more more. So I think he's going to be one of my authors I'm definitely planning on buying more from in the year. But there's so many authors I love. Like literally you just have to look at my bookshelf and you can see some of my favorite authors and who my order buys are. But yeah, that's probably the most I'm going to give for that question, just because we'll be here a while if I go through all of my order buy authors. But yeah. Question 12 is a book adaptation releasing in 2026 that you're excited for. There is quite a few, but the main one I'm really pumped for is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I absolutely loved this book so much. I listened to this on audiobook and it was just phenomenal, and I had to get a physical copy, and I really had so much fun with this. I think it's a really just great and interesting book, and I'm very excited to see what the movie is like. I am really mad that they kind of spoiled some of the main things in the trailer, but that being said, it still does look really good, and I'm really intrigued by seeing Ryan Gosling in this role. But yeah, that's probably the main adaptation that I'm the most excited for. Okay, question 13 is a sequel you're anticipating. Now, I can't think of any sequels that are releasing in 2026 that I'm anticipating, so I'm kind of going with one I already own that came out last year that I'm really anticipating and excited, yet maybe a bit nervous to read, and that is The Strength of the Few by James Islington. I've actually already read the first chapter of this. I've read the first few chapters of this actually, by the looks of it, the first 3 of them. So I really do need to make more progress on this, and I also went to the midnight launch and got it signed, but this is one I'm really anticipating reading. I was originally going to try and finish this in the last bit of 2025, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, and I really didn't want to pressure myself and push myself to do it. So I will be reading this as a buddy read in March with some of my friends over on TikTok, and I'm very much excited to be getting to the sequel. I have had mixed things about it since it's released, but I really enjoyed the first one, so I'm intrigued to see what happens with this one. I am a bit nervous about it being multi-POV because the first one was obviously just Viz's POV, so I'm intrigued to see how that plays a role, especially with everything that has happened and the way that these POVs are changing. But yeah, I'm really much anticipating reading this one. Okay, question 14 is bookish things you are leaving in 2025. Now, there are a few things, but the kind of main one is I'm going to be leaving behind forcing myself to read books I'm not enjoying. So I would like to DNF more books. If I'm not vibing with it, if I'm not having a good time, if I'm not liking it, if there's anything wrong with it and I'm just not having a great time, I'm going to be DNFing that book. I don't see the point in forcing myself to read something I'm not vibing with. If I'm really that curious to see how it ends, I'll maybe let myself flip to the last few chapters and read that. And if I'm liking what's happening, maybe I'll force myself. But like, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm just going to DNF it. There's so many books out there that I know I will love so much more. So if I'm not having a good time, it's getting yeeted. I don't care. So question 15 is what to expect from this account. So I would like to change up the way I've done my reading vlogs. So I've kind of changed it throughout the last few months of the year, kind of. But originally I was trying to do fortnightly reading vlogs, but that's just not going to work with my lifestyle and my work schedule and the time I have to still be able to get out other videos. So I'm going to be changing that to doing monthly vlogs. So I'm going to compile all of my reading throughout the month and film as much of it as I can and some of my other little life things and put that together in vlogs. I think that'll be a lot easier of a way to do it and give me a lot more time to work on other stuff and also edit those vlogs themselves, because I can slowly piece them together throughout the month. Now, the other things you can expect is more themed recommendation videos. This is something I really want to get into more. So I was thinking like monster romance books or monster books for Valentine's Day, because I absolutely think that's a really fun concept and I love monster books. So it'd be stuff like that, or like more Halloween recommendation videos, or like summer or winter or autumn books, like just kind of ones that have a bigger theme connecting all of them. And then I also want to do more tag videos, hence this video, but I do really enjoy tags. I think they're a really good way to kind of get like a good collection of different books and bookish thoughts and opinions all together. And I love watching them, so I definitely really love to do more of them. Okay, question 16 is how has your reading taste evolved from last year? Now, I feel like my reading taste overall hasn't changed that much. Like there's definitely still things that are very continuous. I'm still very much a sci-fi, fantasy, horror fan, but I'm kind of wanting to expand more into different kinds of general fiction. So I'd love to read more literary fiction and everything, like I said. So I think that's definitely something that I'm seeing starting to evolve in my taste. I'm also starting to see myself move more away from YA. I'm finding that a lot of YA just doesn't really work for me anymore. Like I know that was going to happen. Obviously, as I get older and stuff, my tastes will change and my feelings will change, but just a lot of YA doesn't seem to be working for me. So you'll probably see throughout the coming months and throughout this year, I'm going to try and give some a go, but I'm going to be a bit harsher with DNFing and unhauling my YA books that I have and haven't read. read. So I think those are the kind of main ways that I've seen my taste start to change and move. But yeah. Question 17 is booktube creators that inspire you. Now, I've been slipping off on watching booktube lately. I haven't really been watching much YouTube or like book talk creators either. I just don't know what's been happening, but I haven't been. But some people that really inspire me are Jen's Bookshelf. I absolutely love her videos both here and on TikTok and everything, and I have loved her Merry Bright book that I read, and I think she's a beautiful writer. So there's a lot of ways that she inspires me, but I love the content that she does and how she kind of runs her channel. She's just so great, and I love her videos. Another person is Diaries of Creativity, or Tay, and I think her videos are really fun as well. They're a very good mix of like book stuff and then non-book stuff, which I really love and just find to be really fun. And then we've also got Alyssa's Library, who is also someone I follow here and also on TikTok. Her physical TBR, like tackling videos, are really fun. And I love her. I just love the way that she talks about books. She's just really inspires me. Yeah, but I really love all of those creators. Okay, and the final question is something you want to say to anyone who is planning or wanting to start a booktube account. And that is kind of just do it. Just give it a go. It's so much fun. If you really genuinely enjoy it and are having a good time and love to do stuff, you will find the people that love that as well, and you will find your own little place on here. I think it's just such a fun and good creative outlet to have, whether you do take it super seriously or whether it's just something you want to do every now and then. I think just give it a go. Nothing hurts. Like, there's no harm in just trying something and seeing how it goes. But those are all of the questions, and that's it for the entire tag. This was a really interesting tag. I think it's a really good look at kind of like setting yourself up for the year, as well as looking at kind of like a better look at your tastes and your plans and everything. But yeah, that is it for this week's video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.